Hi everybody and welcome back to the Keto Gaia Kitchen. Firstly, I want to apologise as I've not loaded any videos on for a while. Don't know about you, I am one of those people who, when things change in my life and I find myself in not such a good place, I have to get my mindset right before I can pick myself up and get on with things. But you know, I'm glad to say I'm in a much better place now and I am all set to do these videos. So let's get going. I believe it's not just about we are what we eat, but rather we are the mirror image of how we approach the natural world that exists outside our front door. The way we've lived over the past 60 years or so, the advances in technology and so on, which, okay, some of them have been great, but in doing so we've ignored the connection that we have with Mother Nature and the benefits we get from eating real food and living in a way which is more, well, just compatible with the natural world. In times past, the foods we ate, the animals we hunted, the berries and tubers we ate were all governed by the seasons. And not only did we operate like that on a biochemical level, but we also responded to the daylight, the night sky, to the stars and to the seasonality of the weather and to the extended family units we lived in. These factors all had a positive influence on our physical and mental well-being. Nowadays we eat foods that are created in a factory and then reconstituted by machines to look like something we might recognise as food. But the problem is that whilst it might look like food, when it gets inside our bodies, it's not recognised as something the body could use to build and thrive. We don't connect with people from different generations as much, and so we don't learn the ways of the past, and we're constantly searching for ways to be happier. I'm not saying my grandma had all the answers to a happy life, that would just be ridiculous. But I do think that people from all generations have had challenges to face, and being able to talk those through or just to listen to how problems have been overcome by other people is a wonderful way to share the loads of life. It feels like we're a society at the beck and call of clever marketing techniques and social media comparisons. We live our lives at a speed that's incredibly hard to endure. Now, I'm not for one moment suggesting that we forego all our comforts and go completely ancestral. But there are always going to be ways to adapt in certain areas of life that will mean that we are far more connected with the outside world as well as with our own physical, mental and spiritual health. The modern way of life means we end up with an overload of highly processed, energy-rich foods, plus an information overload. We seem to be pushed between processed food producers and the pharmaceutical manufacturers, and I do wonder how much of that has a bearing on our health. If I think back to when my mum was born in the early 1920s, or to my grandma who was born at the turn of the last century, or indeed her mum who was born in the early 1870s, life was very different. I recently lost my beautiful mum, and I can tell you that I miss her so much every day. I was incredibly fortunate growing up because I lived in an extended household. There was my mum and dad, my mum's mum, we called her Nanny, and then my grandma's mum, who we called Nana. who was born, as I say, in the 1870s. That's 4 generations all living in the one house. I can tell you there was a lot of chatting going on and putting the world to rights. All that had an effect on my early childhood and on the foods I ate and how I approached life. My home life probably seemed very busy, but for me it was a wonderful time. In later life, sadly, I fell foul of the modern way of doing things, and I ended up falling into the trap of the ultra-processed foods, the poor life choices, and for many years I suffered, as I've explained in my earlier videos. I was lucky to have my mum here for 97 years. Well, 97 years and 1 month to be exact. And mum passed away from natural causes. She hadn't seen a doctor in a couple of years. She lived on her own and she was independent. Yes, in the last couple of years, she was less mobile, but her mind and her passion for life never lessened, nor did her approach to the best way of life, and that carried on until the day of her death. I often spoke to mum about her life growing up, what food she ate, exercise, the importance of leisure time. And those conversations with mum were absorbing and fascinating. And you know, over the years they gave me an insight into daily life in the early part of the last century that are all becoming more relevant and essential to a healthy life today. As you can imagine, my mum was close to her mum and her grandma, and there were so many of the habits that my mum took with her through her life that had been passed on to her from previous generations. When I was younger, I used to find those a bit funny and really a bit quirky, I suppose. However, you know, as time has gone on, and especially in recent years, as we've found out about things like circadian rhythms, etc., I can see those daily actions my mum took now make a lot of sense to me. I'm sure back in the 1870s or even before that, nobody was talking about circadian rhythms, and yet that was an unspoken but understood part of everyday life. So I thought I might include in this video some of the daily habits that my mum used to enjoy right up until the day she died. So my mum loved to wake up to natural light in the mornings. So at night time she would never close her curtains. She said she liked to be woken up by the sun and the daylight. It helped her to start the day with a positive frame of mind. And I can tell you, my mum was a very positive person and full of energy. Mum hated wearing socks and usually went without, even in the middle of winter. Mum preferred, whenever possible, not to wear shoes either, and would always go barefoot around the house and the garden and just about at any opportunity she could get. Now we're beginning to understand the benefits of being in touch with the energy of the earth beneath our feet, and I think Mum seemed to instinctively know that. Mum rarely ate breakfast and only did so when she was away somewhere, and then she loved a full cooked breakfast with bacon and eggs and sausage. So her first meal of the day would have been around lunchtime, which was always meat and a salad. If I've heard this once, I've heard this 1,000 times from Mum, from Nanny and from my Nana. You've got to eat a speck of dirt before you die. As children, we were encouraged to get out in the garden, playing with mud and dirt. And you know, I remember once getting into a bit of trouble when I thought I'd made the most perfect mud pie, and I carried it inside to show my mum. Of course, by the time I got into inside, it had reduced down to a load of brown mush, and Mum was not too impressed as I held it out to her to show how clever I'd been, and then watched it drip onto the white carpet. Oh, to be young again. My memories of growing up were lots of meat, both at lunch and in the evenings. I remember liver and bacon being delicious. Kidneys were never a favourite in our household when I was young. But actually, you know, in recent years, I've gone back to eating offal, and everything was cooked in beef dripping or lard, with butter only ever used on special occasions because it was far too expensive to use on a daily basis. These next daily habits I listed here are enjoyed by most people, but I wanted to include these not only because they featured in Mum's daily life, but also because they've been shown to help to keep us young and in touch with life. Having a daily routine. Routines have been shown to be really beneficial for reducing stress and keeping active. I know routine was really important for Mum, and she would say that no matter what was going on in her life, good things or bad things, if she was having a good day or a bad day, routines gave her focus and structure and stability and kept her productive and moving forwards, and just meant that she could get on with things. Puzzles and reading. Keeping the brain active has been shown to help to maintain a good working memory, help with thinking and cognitive skills, and even help to reduce anxiety. Reading, crosswords, Sudoku and jigsaw puzzles were all firm favourites in Mum's house. Keeping in touch with family and friends. Keeping in touch either in person or by using the phone, which Mum really enjoyed, and maintaining those connections has been shown time and time again to be beneficial for a happy and productive life. Accepting that life has its ups and downs and appreciating the subtleties of the simple pleasures that, you know, it is very easy to take for granted. I can't really ever say that Mum followed a keto diet. Probably she was into the low carb, but her food was certainly nutrient rich, and the way she lived her life has made me wonder whether or not those daily practices she had contributed to her living a full and happy life. So that's it for today's video. I've really enjoyed today. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon here in the kitchen, in my Keto Gaia kitchen. Take care and bye for now.